Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Today, we're joined by Clement. You want to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yes. So my name is Clement. I'm French. I live in London for the moment. I'm working. I've been working for some time, but not really very pleased with my job. Various problems that appear with time, and I started studying psychology because I think that is very useful in my private life and also for work.
Interesting. So we'll get a little bit deeper into those problems that you've had at the workplace, and we'll find out where those problems came from. My name is Rasmus Anton. I'm very interested in psychology, psychotherapy, therapeutic interventions, treating treatment-resistant depression, anxiety, and also the dark triads: narcissism, Machiavellianism, sociopathy, psychopathy, and personality disorders in general, and the effects of narcissistic personality disorders on this planet, and especially on occupational settings. Currently, I'm studying my master's in occupational and business psychology in London. Very curious and very eager to take a lot of initiative to change the future waves of this world, and I'm willing to put in time and discuss with open-minded people, just as Clement right here, about how we could improve each other's lives, other people's lives, and our work environment. So um, no introduction needed anymore. Let's get into the topic. So Clement, you mentioned that there were some things about your work that you didn't find maybe acceptable. Would you like to elaborate a little bit about that?
Yes, there are a few things actually. Part of the things are linked to my personality, my experience when I was younger. Um, so I'm rather the type who is introvert, and I've not had difficulties communicating. So with inside my family, but with my friends and in the workplace was obviously even worse. So I always have problems like that. Uh, but there are some persons with whom it's easier to talk than others, obviously, right? So I think that I have an idea now what kind of person I prefer working with, and that's the sort of thing you can change in your environment. You can decide to change your job and sort of stick to the sort of environment you really feel comfortable with. So there's been a progression definitely in my career where I've realized that I don't need to suffer, being with people like uh, who have different values or who uh, with whom I don't have a very good communication. Um, I came to realize that I'm very I'm very focused on achievement. So if you think that different type of personality, some people who prefer like making money, like performance, really creating something with potentially immediate rewards. I'm more of the type who needs to think about things and really I want to make something important, significant, not just making money. That doesn't really appeal to me. So I've been with a certain type of person that probably were the same type as me. I would describe as that, right? And in the end, I arrived in a team where everybody almost was like me, introvert and very focused on very technical work, right? Um, so it was nice. But then I realized that there was the counterpart to that because, in a way, there's a reason why the team is made of these people, which is that we don't really complain about things. We're mostly happy with the job we're doing. We don't need much. As long as our job is interesting, I think that's enough for us. So then I realized that there's been some sort of exploitation of that by by the company, and by the manager as well.
Okay, so Clement, if I can disturb quickly, I think you seem to be a very down-to-earth, sweet-hearted, good-intentioned person. Just right off the bat, I get that energy from you, and you seem to be a very honest and I would say sociable as well. From the way that you're speaking right now, you definitely, you can socialize with whoever. And obviously, we're not going to go too much into detail about your personal life. Or examples here, because there will be other people watching this who might not appreciate it at this given moment of time. But we will touch upon the topics of faulty leadership, and the abuse of introverted people could be a very good topic here as well. And how come is it that there's so many leaders and bosses and CEOs who have no remorse manipulating people at their workplace? If this is the case with you or not, I've seen this in my life and other people's life quite a lot. And how is there this acceptance of this happening? Why is no one saying anything? And I think quite evidently the answer is fear. People are in fear, and rightfully so, because a lot of people are dependent of their work, and a lot of people cannot just speak up, say the truth, say like, hey, the way my boss or manager talks to me isn't appropriate. I'm not used to this kind of things. And as you said, some people in some cases might just stay there for the job that they have, and maybe that's something that they love doing, but just the environment isn't as good as it should be. And here in our little podcast here, we are searching for aspects that could improve that environment. So from my own experience and perspective, we're gonna have to touch upon the topics of narcissism here. And I think if people took more interest in learning about psychology, just as you did, specifically personality psychology, specifically personality disorders, and specifically ASPD and NPD, so antisocial personality disorder, sociopathy and psychopathy, and narcissistic personality disorder, we see a lack of empathy. So little to no empathy towards other people, this need to be a pathological liar, fake charm, very convincing but never truthful, kind of a chameleon, might talk behind people's backs, and really kind of a fraud, right? These specific personality disorders are, from my experience, from my opinion, are not experts in a way that you could be or I could be. You become an expert by being emotionally involved in a topic and loving it and studying it and doing it on and on and on. That's how you become an expert at something. But if you have a lack of empathy, you're actually not connected to the emotional world. So if you're not connected to the emotional world, how can you emotionally invest into something or someone? You can't, right? And I gave an example before this call about Silicon Valley, where we see that there's, I would say 80% of the experts there are mostly people with aspergers, who are very similarly to what you described, usually more introverted, but experts at what they do, total experts, maybe the best in the world. But taking that scenario, to compare it with, we see that we have two types of people in the Silicon Valley. We have the experts, and then we have the people that present the products and the people that kind of rule those companies and
Yeah,
those
the manager.
projects. The managers, exactly. So now once again we're back to the topic of the managers, and this is no surprise to any of us. If you go on YouTube and you type in my experience working at Silicon Valley, you will find a lot of people resembling the symptoms of Asperger's. For those of you that don't know about Asperger's, it's used to be a high functioning type of autism. Um, um, So these people are manipulated, and as I said before, go on YouTube and look at their experiences. These are people that went from China, Japan, India. Their whole goal in life was to work for a big company and really do provide passionate results with their work and become experts, and that's what they did. But now they're making YouTube videos, they're depressed, they have suicidal ideation, and this is where the relevance of this topic really comes in, because research suggests that the narcissistic leaders with no empathy, with no understanding, with no patience, high levels of negative neuroticism, they actually cause stress, right? And stress turns into anxiety, and anxiety turns into depression. And for those types of people, it seems that everyone is replaceable. So they do not care about the effects that they push upon other people, because in their eyes, everyone is just kind of a chess piece that can be moved around for profit, for their own gain, right? So they don't care about the long-term mental health issues of their employees and so on. So how have we come to a society where it is so accepted to be quiet, uh, introverted, and live in fear and degrade our mental health? Because this isn't just about you or me or anyone that's working there. It's also, if you're being mentally manipulated most of your work days, 1 day, 2 day, 3 day. 3 days is a lot already. Now imagine working for 5 years or 20 years under a boss with iron fist. That's not only going to cause problems in your life. You might get heart disease, heart attacks from all of the psychological stress. You're also going to carry it over, either unconsciously or consciously, to the family you're around, and they're going to feel that negativity spreads. So how is it okay that these types of people are leaders? And what would you say, Clement, could be some kind of a collectivistic intervention for all of us to think about, and maybe in the future initiate for the improvement of our own health?
Yes, there's one thing that really I think, as you taught, is the importance of emotional intelligence, um, in a very wide manner. But basically, I realized that I did not understand what was happening to me, actually. So you understand that because you've studied and you've thought about that. But if you are not told about that, I think that the natural reaction would be to feel guilty in a way. You see that there's something wrong and the person is accusing you, and you have no way to comparing that to an objective evaluation of the situation. So the idea, I think, is like awareness, and awareness not only of your situation but of yourself as well. So to understand what is happening inside you, to understand the stress and the effects that it's going to put on you, and as much as possible to be able to gain sort of detachment, from your situation. I think that's very important.
That's a really good point. So, Clement, at what point would you say that a person, really starts thinking like, "Wow, I never used to feel like this before I started this work. I find myself feeling anxious and sometimes very moody, and I'm usually not moody at all. I find myself feeling very, very passive aggressive in some ways, and I don't recognize myself. I think some people might be like, oh, maybe it's the weather, or maybe I didn't eat good enough. But when do you think that it's enough enough for the person to actually correlate that negative transference of emotions to the workplace, where a person is like, okay, I think this is from the workplace? When do you think like that? How long would it take for someone to realize that?
Yes, well, in my case, it took maybe 15 years, probably, I would say. But I would raise the problem that you mentioned, that Asperger people especially are very much focused in the contents of their job rather than the environment. So
Mm,
they sort of,
mm,
the only thing they want to do is really be on the job, and they don't care the manager, the environment, whatever. That's not a problem. They want to do an interesting job. And as long as they do have an interesting job, they are fulfilled on for the need of achievement, for instance, then they tend to like ignore the rest of actually the very important things that happen around us, like interpersonal relationships, or the sort of the fairness of treatment of people to each other. um, and I think that there may be a tendency to just forget about yourself, basically not being able to take care of yourself very simply.
amazing, amazing points.
So there's also something else actually you mentioned, which is that these people think that they cannot leave their job for various reasons. You may think, okay, uh, somebody just left everything, to take a chance, and other reasons may be just simply because the person lacks self-confidence. So it's difficult to find another job when you feel that you're very specialized, you're very good at your job now, but you can't really imagine how you could, do the same thing in another environment, another company or an industry.
Nice.
I think there's definitely a belief there that changing jobs is difficult, and that can be aggravated by the narrative that you're hearing around you, especially, say, the manager who may want to keep you, may try to influence you into thinking that, uh, potentially you would not be able to find a job somewhere else.
Very interesting. So you're mentioning possibilities of manipulation here, where they might even make you feel worthless. Be like, look, you only have value if you stay here. Nobody else is gonna want you. And this is very interesting because when we look at the narcissistic personality disorders, this is the exact same behavior they show in romantic relationships. So for those of you that don't know how narcissistic people are in romantic relationships, they they will manipulate you on a daily basis, right? And when you finally feel like you've had enough and you're gonna leave, they will make you feel so worthless that you think that you have no hope with any other person, or even if you're alone. They create a codependency, and this is very interesting because you see this in the managerial position as well. They're trying to create the codependency of you while abusing you, and they're very good at it, right? And this is also one of the reasons that they don't care if you actually leave unless you bring a lot of value to the job. If you just do a task and they manipulate you and you leave, it's fine, because there's going to be other employees coming in that haven't had that bad experience yet. They will do the same thing. They will eventually leave again, and then comes new employees. So the question is, once again, how is the manager the same, and how is no one noticing that the manager is doing these things? Now, this can be explained by various topics. It could be that the whole hierarchy is rotten by narcissism from the very core, and the upper echelons of the hierarchy they just think that that's normal, right? But this isn't normal, and it's never going to be normal, and people need to speak up on this. So very interesting what you said about, they might try to convince you that you're
I can add something because you mentioned in romantic relationships, and I think of something that is very telling, which is the fact that, for instance, you see a lot of person entering into a relationship and being very committed, very involved, and trying to please the other person. And the idea is that progressively, that person will start to ask something back, actually. And the narrative there is to say, I gave you so much and you owe me something. So, as you say, it creates a dependency for the other person. You feel guilty, you you are told that you owe something, and you think, yeah, that's true because she gave, the person gave
That's
me.
that's a really good point there, Clement.
And
Uh,
it is the same in the workplace. You hear the same things like, I've hired you, and you
yeah.
should pay me for that.
Yeah,
Eh,
very interesting how the just because of the operating system of that particular personality disorder without empathy, they have the same approaches to different situations in different contexts. So to some extent, these people are predictable, and if you're a socially experienced person, you're less likely to be around those people. You're more likely to filter them out, right? And this is kind of the whole purpose of all of these videos, is to talk about a lot of different experiences so people recognize these things, because quite often when we give examples, these are abnormal examples, of things that shouldn't be happening, that normal people don't do. What you mentioned there was the narcissistic honeymoon phase. So for 2 weeks usually they will give you everything for 2 weeks, and then for the next 20 years they will give you nothing, right? And they keep reminding you, yeah, but what did I give you the first week? Right. So it's it's uh, it's actually really, really, really predictable, because if you think of a machine and you can predict how that machine works, narcissism is the exact same thing. And I'm not over exaggerating here. I want everyone that's watching this video to think of some of the most challenging people that you've met in your life. Just think of them. And now, after this video, I want to challenge you, not to be a challenging person, but I would like to challenge you to Google symptoms of ASPD, symptoms of NPD. Google it, and that person you were imagining, you're going to see that person in those symptoms. Why? Because they have the exact same operating system. Now, you might have a narcissist working at a car construction company or a car wash company, or a manager or a politician. The way they operate, the way they see life, the way they see you, useless chess piece, replaceable useless chess piece, it's the same. It's just based off their experiences, they will adapt to different contexts. And that's really about it. And as long as we keep sympathizing with these characters that are consistently manipulative, pathological liars, and feel no remorse, how can I have remorse for someone that has never felt remorse in their life? I cannot. And people seem not to be ready to understand this context. And I concept. And I absolutely understand why. Because as an empath, as empathetic people, we quite often project our empathy, our sympathy onto others. And we think, well, I changed, so she can change, he can change. I'll give them another chance. Okay, be my guest. Give them one more chance. But don't give them a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. No, you're going to get mental health issues. You might even ruin your genetics if you're under constant stress when you're alive. Sympathizing with someone is perfectly fine as long as you know the intentions behind that individual and you know their personality type. But I want to challenge everyone to think about this, that there are people that you cannot sympathize with. As bad as it sounds like, this is the truth. And as long as there will be people, inexperienced people that sympathize with everyone, they will sympathize with the narcissist. They will sympathize with the narcissistic manager. They will be the one who say, "Hey, Rasmus, you deserve what this manager did to you," um, while not even realizing that they've been maybe brainwashed by the manager themselves, right? So, but this is also something that schools don't really do a good job at, and maybe even universities to some extent. Critical thinking is key, and it's very simple to write off someone with hypotheses and theories as conspiracy theories or paranoid delusions or whatever. But it's another thing to listen to someone and reflect and really try to be in the head of someone that's speaking, and seeing maybe it's true. Maybe it is true. If you're a very reactive person, it's going to be difficult for you to learn new things, especially if they're making you uncomfortable. Because as humans, we are comfort seekers. We want physical pleasure and we want social pleasure. And some of us, dependent on our childhoods, we have a higher tolerance towards pain. And if you have a low tolerance towards pain, you don't want pain at all, you don't even like the idea of being uncomfortable, then it is going to naturally be much more difficult for you to introduce new ideas and maybe even listen to people till the end. Um, so yeah, so Clement, I think everything you said now has been spot on, honestly. Um, what would you say would be some of the methods that someone looking for a new job could make sure that they're not jumping into this kind of codependent, possibly codependent relationship with people around them that don't appreciate them on an emotional level?
It's a tough question, honestly. It's very difficult. Um, one thing is the perspective that you have on your own life, basically. So the thing is, um, obviously, not everything is your job. You have other things in your life. It's not saying that you should not put as much energy in your job. It's not about that. It's just thinking about the other parts that exist in your life, and probably you're not really valuing enough. Um, so there's for me, yeah, there's definitely a sort of trying to be more active out of work, have more social activity, because exactly because I thought that I was too focused on my job, and I
Mm,
was afraid that it's a very small environment. We do things like, as I said, we're a team of guys who do the same thing. There's no We're all the same personality, almost the same culture. There's not very much stimulation there. And if you remove the stimulation, you get into a situation where you feel very comfortable. So the fact that you're comfortable makes you even, less eager to move, basically,
yeah.
because you think, all the hassle for moving job
Mm,
and all the stress that goes with it, and you could just stay here, almost happy with your job, and you're trying to put all these problems with your manager in some place where you forget about it,
mm,
obviously. But the point is that if you are able to find the right balance, not only like technical contents, not only the very little domain of tasks that you are doing in your job, but thinking about the relationships, thinking about the environment and your own life as well. And what you know if you put a little less weight on your job, what remains? Actually, you have to ask yourself the question is just just forget about your job. Okay, what
okay,
have you got?
it's a
What do
question
you
of
do?
balance.
What do you? Yes, because one of the reasons that people get so much involved in their job is because, and they love it as well, is that it's so easy because you know what you have to do, and you've got some challenges sometime, and you don't know what to do, but that's great. It's good stress because especially if you have the need for achievement and growth.
Right.
That's the best thing. It gives you a lot of adrenaline.
That's right. It's predictable,
Yes,
comfortable, and
yes, you're
doable.
protected by your
Right.
company,
Yeah.
and you feel very comfortable. So that's a risk. The risk is that you start to forget about yourself and your life.
Very, very good points, Clement. I mean, definitely, I can see this happening to myself and everyone, just being burdened by the work, just being so focused on the work. And this brings me to another point. Maybe there's a correlation between having kind of a negative support system where you kind of just want to work at work. You don't want to socialize, because when you
Yes,
socialize, there's a chance that you're going to get punished or manipulated, right? So
exactly.
and this connects
There's
very.
one point where I felt it was very dangerous because I tried to avoid my manager, you know. I saw that was a problem, but I thought if I just concentrate on the main task, because I'm happy with that, I really love my job. If I just focus on that, and forget about my manager, then it's fine, because everything will be like paradise. But that's a mistake actually.
Mm.
That's a mistake, but it's easily, it's easy to do.
It's a very comfortable mistake, definitely.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's you think that's the best way is just to ignore your problems.
Nice. Very, very good points. And I was going to comment on this previously, but I forgot. So I'm going to bring it back up. This is something that you said. And this actually relates to what we're talking about right now. You said that when we look at people with Asperger's, there is more of a focus on expertise rather than the external social relationship, right? So not only do the expert Asperger's people have full focus on the work naturally, they also have an inclination to not be socially involved either, which is kind of sounds like perfectly abusable person for a narcissist, to be
Yeah.
honest. It's perfect recipe. Someone does their job, is really good at it, shuts up when they need to, low resistance, right? um, I mean, that's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. But I think that the more we understand this, the more we can avoid these situations. And once again, personality psychology, regardless of what field you're in right now in your life, study a little bit about personality psychology, because read a couple of books, read some videos, look at Dr. Grande on YouTube, look at Dr. Ramani about narcissism, and take that new knowledge, apply it into your operating system, and then with that new knowledge, look back in your past, look back at the conflicts you had. Maybe you had a breakup with a person that you blamed yourself for 5 years, where you were depressed. Now, after understanding more about personality types and being able to identify, whoa, whoa, that person was Satan walking on earth, and I actually felt bad because of all of the stuff they told me. uh, you know then you might come to a place where you're like, oh, okay, now I suddenly understand everything, and you become more resistant to anxiety, depression, stress, all of that stuff. And this is why we're making videos like this: information out, information in, and it's always the source, right? um, Fascinating, Clement, fascinating. Would you like to touch upon anything else in this topic?
Well, yeah, I think that I I caught up with psychology very late in my life, because I had some struggle and I understood, that I needed some tools for that, for protecting myself. And what you're saying is very true. People should have an education. It should be as early as possible. I'm not saying that it's necessarily a prevention, because it's too abstract, possibly, unless before you've really experienced something. So I think your idea of retrospection is very good. That's the idea of trying to understand what happened to you, actually, to have the tools to be able to analyze and to judge by yourself, and to think about, do I want the same thing to happen again in the future, or to change things if you don't want them to be the same.
A nice point, definitely. Reflection and an open-mindedness, and yeah, kind of to finish off this topic. We talked a lot about Asperger's people, but let's not forget about the neurotypical normal person. Um, what's interesting about our childhoods is that our personalities have been conditioned to some extent by different variations of external factors. It could be propaganda. It could be the propaganda your father brings home to you on a daily basis. If you used to live in Soviet Russia or Nazi Germany or North Korea, it could be the way your parents don't greet you when you come home from a long day of work. It could be the way you're not listened to when you speak. And quite often we see that fear is one of the main pillars that shapes someone's personality. Why? Well, I would say there's two main uh, emotions. It's fear and excitement. And excitement is always great. Everyone wants to be excited. That's awesome. But with fear, quite often we have, most of us have very, if not all of us, have very emotional memory, and you remember details better if there's emotions attached to it, especially fear. So imagine being a young boy, young girl, going through some kind of negative experiences. Maybe you're unlucky enough to have had a narcissistic parent, completely narcissistic parent, or both, or no parents at all, and you've been around people that didn't take care of you, and the way that poor child suffered from the external fear on a daily basis, daily basis, daily basis, daily basis. And the child learns not to question. Do not question, because if you question, you're going to feel afraid. And when you feel afraid, you're going to hate it. Just shut up and do your work. And I think a lot of people can grow up like this, and not socialize enough with other people to the extent where they think that most people might make them feel that bad or that sad, which is not true, right? So let's now look at a healthy child that has had emotional love from their parents, has had experience to talk about anything, to be listened to be respected, but also to meet a lot of different people. For example, big families can be good or bad. They could be good because you have a lot of different cousins with different personalities. Hence, you can talk to different personalities who don't make you feel fearful, and you get to understand that, whoa, not everyone is like me. He's like this, she's like that. And if I say the same sentence to him that I would say to her, their reactions are different. Interesting. There seems to be many truths here. But let's go back to the unfortunate childhood. You're not going to be that curious, because you might be internally curious, what's going to happen if I do this, what's going to be happen if I do that, but the fear holds you back. The fear holds you from walking up to the person and saying, hey, what do you think about this? Hey, what do you think about this? So anticipating pain, and the hyper vigilance we have to pain is quite often conditioned by our childhood experiences. And I think these are things that we can train ourselves to become more resilient with, through experience, and through learning and teaching, and all of those good things. And I think, if I could give any advice to anyone looking for a new job, really, really look at the before you invest yourself 100% into somewhere. Um, Read a little bit about personality psychology, socialize a little bit if you can. Right now, it's difficult during the virus. Uh, but look at the personality behind the company. Look at the personality behind the company. Let's say, for example, I'm vegan, right? I only eat vegetable vegetables, right? Basically, I don't eat meat, I don't eat milk, and it's quite common that vegans are more empathetic than the average person, because the average person eats meat, right? Wow, wow, right? Not only because of that, but yeah, I would say that. These organic, anti-animal abuse type companies, a lot of vegan companies, I would say that they're led not by narcissists, but by actual legitimate people with good hearts. So I wouldn't think twice. I would think once, but I wouldn't think twice about applying for like a vegan, let's say, human resources position, because it's a much higher percentage that I'm going to be working with very empathetic, very open people, and I'm not going to bring that stress home with me on a daily basis. While, for example, if I want to depress myself for the next 5 years, I might go to a phone sales company where you need to be charming, manipulative, pathological liar. Who do you think your manager is gonna be? You think it's gonna be some librarian, nice woman like, oh, good job? No, it's gonna be some sleazy narcissist usually, who's like, yeah, yeah, just tell them about this. We're gonna get more money for that one. Put up the price a little bit. So it's really, where do you bring yourself? You bring yourself to either where you don't know enough or where you know enough. And I think the personality is everything behind that. Personality behind the companies.
Well,
Yeah.
I, I've always tried to, as you say, being with people that are not like me. It's painful, but it's the most rewarding experience.
Mm,
So there's a really like a balance, you know. You need to keep yourself comfortable, but at the same time, you need to experiment a bit.
for sure, for sure. Open-mindedness, experimentation, and yeah. Wow, Clement, I really got a lot of knowledge from you here today,
Really
and
interesting.
and you made splendid points on the examples that you gave, and I think we've done a rather okay job with transferring the knowledge that we wanted to transfer to our viewers today. And hopefully, there's people that found at least something useful from this. That's all that we ask for.
Yeah.
And would there be any other comments you would like to finish this topic off with, Clement?
Nice, nice. Really, it's very good to talk with you. I'm very happy. I think that, as you say, there are many people who have the same experience, and I feel like I've managed to do something very nice in my own case. So if I can share, you know, the strategies, etc., that would be nice.
Nice, that's awesome, Clement. You've been a great guest on our show here. um, what can I say? I think we've touched upon some really good topics. Maybe we should stop it here. I think people have a lot to reflect upon after this video. Um, so yeah, I would like to thank you for taking the time, Clement. I
Thank you for
I really appreciate you, and for everyone watching, thank you as well.